so incredibly underrated. Because forget about everything he does on the court for the sake of this conversation. Steph Curry's willingness to take a back seat in 2017 to Kevin Durant, him to sit in that living room in that house in the Hamptons and say, Kevin, I want to reduce my ceiling as an individual so that you can come here and help us. No one gives him the proper credit for this. And now that he is back on top of the world as the finals MVP, we have Mark Spears from Manscaped, who is one of the most respected journalists covering the NBA, who lives in Oakland and knows the Warriors better than anybody, who reports that the Warriors actually have talked about the concept of bringing Durant back, whether it's a 1% chance or whatever. That would mean that Steph Curry would be open to it. And the concept that Steph would do that, to me, when you have this conversation, I'm thinking about Steph Curry. I'm thinking about how amazing it would be that Steph would even be willing to have a 5-minute conversation about this, much less it actually happening, because that's who Steph is. And out of all the stuff that Draymond has said over the last 2 months, and a lot of it I was there for, one of the things that Draymond has said that has had the most texture is how rare it is for the fact that he, Klay Thompson, and Steph have been able to coexist and be happy and win together for a decade. It doesn't happen. And so I would say, why would you even think about ruffling any of that feather, even if they were interested in wanting to do it? People make fun of Joe Lacob, the Warriors owner, because he once told the New York Times, we're light years ahead. But they kind of have been. They kind of have been. The way that they have constructed the organization, the way they have taken advantage of things that were in their favor and taken advantage of things that were out of their favor, the way they have leveraged opportunities, and they've had some fortune. Of course, every team that wins has fortune, but they've set themselves up to have the back end of Curry's prime refreshed with young players, refreshed with developing players, and have those draft picks going forward, which, by the way, they tend to hit on because they just got Jordan Poole a couple years ago. And you know that one of these 3 guys they picked in the lottery the last 2 years, you know one of them is going to end up being a stud. And they've got a development program. Everything there is going so well. Whether they win the title next year or not, I wouldn't touch it. But I would take my hat off to them for even having this conversation, because it's an indication of how strong of an organization they have and how much they believe in their culture.
Wendy, I think you bring up a good point. Steph Curry does not get enough credit because
I agree.
When we mentioned earlier, and I was talking about Russell Westbrook and having pride as an individual, that's one thing we know Steph Curry doesn't have, because he did take that back seat to Kevin Durant when he came over. Kevin Durant was the best player those years he was there in Golden State. But I will say this, Steph Curry was still well thought of, and defenses knew we had to stop Steph Curry in order to make things happen for them offensively. But I just say, when you look at a guy like Steph, he's the perfect family man. He's the guy that gets it done. Even when he got hurt this year and he came back in the playoffs and he didn't want to ruffle anything, he took a back seat and came off the bench. Think about how many people in the NBA with his status would have felt some type of way if a coach even would have asked them or approached them about that situation. Steph Curry knew things were going good at that moment and decided, you know what, let me come off the bench. Let me let Jordan Poole continue to do his thing. I see the same thing when they're playing the game of basketball and you see Klay Thompson get hot or you see Jordan Poole get hot. And when Kevin Durant was there, Kevin Durant gets hot. Steph Curry's not looking for a shot. He's looking to feed the ball to those guys because he knows at some point he's going to get his. So you're right, Wendy. He does not get enough credit for his mindset when it comes to situations like this.
And just one other layer to this, because this has to be said, like if you're thinking of players who would be in the hall going to Brooklyn in exchange for Kevin Durant, Andrew Wiggins would be one of the ones who could make the salaries work. But again, you know, there's the element there of that designated rookie max. So the only way that would happen is Ben Simmons would then have to get traded to the Golden State Warriors, because you cannot have 2 players on the same team with that. So there's a lot of